Should be live. Fingers crossed. Okay. Hopefully everybody is doing good tonight. Let's see if we can hear me okay. Okay. Hopefully... Alright, sounds pretty good. So if we can just get chitty chat going off. And we'll get the show started once we tweet this out. Hopefully everybody is doing good tonight. Probably going to be a shorter episode today just because things kind of like to be hot and messy. How goes things? ZRG, things are going great. I am on vacation at home, so trying to be as productive as humanly possible while also at the same time making progress with a couple of projects going on. How are things going with you tonight? Alrighty. We are just about ready. Just gotta open this bad boy up. Clear that out. Alrighty. Let's tweet it up and get going. How's it going, Daniel? How's it going, Immortal Slasher? How is it going, ZRG, once again? What is hit film? I'm very out of the loop. Mortal, I appreciate you staying awake for our horrendously bad time zone differences. But on that note, what is up going on, Cougar Gal? Let's get our show started. How's it going, everybody, and welcome to Shin Megami Tensei Network Link 193. I'm your solo host, Spencer Presley, this week, and on this week, we are doing another solo live show podcast, talking to chitty chat. So shout out to everybody in the chat so far, ZRG, Daniel, Immortal Slasher, and Cougar Gal. Was expecting to have at least a couple different guests on this show, but in the nightmare hellscape that is 2020, God forbid anything ever actually go through correctly. So you get me talking about video game delays on this SMT-related podcast. How's it going, Happy? So, yeah, this week's episode is going to be pretty off the cuff. I don't expect it to go very long, but I just kind of wanted to have a discussion with you. As a lot of you may be aware, Cyberpunk 2077 just recently got a delay today. And this got me kind of thinking about, why do we let video game delays affect us so much? I think there's honestly problems on both ends in the side of, I think some people are way too lenient on video game delays, and I also think some people are way too hard on video game delays. And what I mean by that is, like, I'm always surprised by the people who, I guess let's talk about the people who are way too lenient. I think there's a little less to say on that, but one of the big things you'll always see pop up when video games get delayed is that one Miyamoto quote that I now have to pull up because I absolutely hate it. Miyamoto. Here we go. I absolutely hate this quote with a burning passion. Shigeru Miyamoto says, "A delayed game is eventually good, but a rushed game is bad forever." I think instead of having that quote be like the ifto facto quote that comes from this legendary game designer, important also to remember, this is the guy who delayed Star Fox Zero many times and still released that video game. I think you need to know when enough is enough in terms of developing it, because ask anyone who works on any creative project, like, if they are given an infinite timeline in an infinite budget, how are you ever actually going to, like, see the end of day for that? And obviously, Miyamoto's quote comes from a good place of, like, hey, don't just shit something out the door. Like, if you delay it for a good reason, you're going to need to. And we're going to kind of get into that with the positives for it. But I just kind of want to say off the bat, I'm really not a fan of that phrase, just in the sense of, yes, video games do require a lot of time and a lot of energy, but at the same point, it is also important to put an end date on something. One of the things I like about having this podcast as a weekly format, hey, what's going on, Mark? Yeah, this is a solo podcast this week. One of the things I enjoy about having the show be weekly is no matter what opposition I may come across, like, say, even for this week where I had two different guests back out at the same time, like, I'll put out whatever project I can to the best of my absolute ability. How's it going there, Gideon West? So, with video game delays, like, a good example for me, talking about how video game delays can be good, and before we kind of get into are they bad, look at video game delays in the sense of, let's look at The Last of Us. Similarly, I do want to talk about The Last of Us 2 in terms of video game delays, and if you guys have any video game delays you sort of want to talk about, just let me know. Zide, whose name I probably absolutely messed up, thank you for following me on Twitter. Really appreciate that. So, if you guys have any video games delays you could sort of want to talk about, whether they be good or bad, let me know in the chat below. Ooh, Final Fantasy VII Remake is a great one to bring up, Mark. Yes, so The Last of Us 1 and even a couple other games like Final Fantasy VII Remake had a lot of very last-minute pushback delays that were like, okay, hey, the game's done, you just gotta trust us, though, like, hey, we need that extra couple of weeks, like Cyberpunk just announced today. They have, like, literally a 3-week delay. And I know a lot of people might hear that stuff and just go, what the fuck? Like, the game went gold a couple weeks ago. What are you delaying? Like, you've already started printing the game. Why are you delaying stuff so much? And what really stinks about that is, like, it's very hard, I think, for your general customer or even just general fan to look at something like that short of a delay and think, okay, are you saying the game is in such a broken state that you were about to sell us a broken piece of trash? Or are you saying that you're so close to perfection you want to get it as perfect as possible and you think there's something in those 3 weeks that'll absolutely nail it? And one of my favorite video game delay stories that I don't think actually gets enough props is the original Last of Us. If you remember, the original Last of Us, I think, was supposed to come out like April or May, and then got pushed to June. There was a couple last-minute delays that happened with that game. And if you ask anyone at Naughty Dog, they will say that one of the biggest factors in making that game go from a really good game to a really great game was that last delay just for polish. And obviously we don't have builds to kind of compare, and we have to take it at their word, but there are so many delays that happen for good that just overall it's hard to deny. Like, going back to what Mark brought up with Final Fantasy VII Remake, I remember it was so mind-boggling to me that that game got delayed again last minute after, because Final Fantasy is so synonymous with delays, but especially 15. Jesus, 15 had a reveal event for its date just to then get pushed back a couple of weeks. It was, like, absolutely insane. But yeah, Final Fantasy VII Remake, if you look back at it earlier this year, they were very upcoming and forth with everyone. They were like, hey, the game is playable, we could get you to play this game, but you just gotta trust us. Like, give us a little bit more time. We've already made you wait this long. I want you to just have the best game possible. I don't want to just have a okay game come out. And it really goes to show, like, I think even still to this day, Final Fantasy VII Remake hasn't had a patch. And yes, Final Fantasy Remake is not flawless or does not have no amount of bugs and whatnot, is what's going on. And I mean, like, I know one of the big ones for me that I was like, how did this pass through cert, was like, one of the scenes when you're in Shinra Tower, if you look at optional conversation dialogue trees, your game will just hard freeze. you have to reset. It's just like really, really odd. So like stuff like that, like yeah, it still passes through, but the overall experience was still so buttery smooth, especially for such a large late generation game like that. Another one going back to The Last of Us Part 2, whether you like that game or not, I did not have a single problem with that game in terms of technical wise. Like my entire playthrough, I was so amazed at how polished the whole experience was, let alone with the fact that, like, Last of Us 2, if you bought it on a disc, already had the first couple of patches baked into it, so you weren't even like, oh, well, you gotta download this day one patch. Like, having that experience of a game on the disc to be absolutely ready is really, really key. Let me just kind of catch up with chat here. Happy says, can't officially delay a game if you never announce it. Yeah, looking at you, Persona 5 Scrabble. Boy, the amount of times that game has been delayed without actually getting announced is actually comical at this point. Zaid says, big fan of Persona, and I was actually on a podcast to talk about P5R not too long ago. Oh wait, what podcast is that? I'd be very interested to know. Not a lot of Persona podcasts out there, even though the Persona community is very, very large. Immortal says, since I wasn't in the community when this was going on, what was about the OG P5 delays? Okay, yeah, we might as well actually kind of make this sort of related to SMT. So, one of the most infamous delayed games, if you ask any SMT fan out there, has to be vanilla Persona 5. The game was announced in I think it was 2013. It might be 2012 if I'm remembering wrong, but no, yeah, it was 2013. I see, now that I'm doing this live, I'll have to correct myself. Let's do this. Yeah, it was announced in 2013, and what's so funny about this is its biggest meme easily had to be, it kept saying, don't worry, it's coming next year, coming next year, coming next year, coming next year. So let's actually kind of work through those delays just in terms of like what and why those happened. So we're not going to get into English delays until 2016, just because really the English version was basically vaporware up until the game was finished in Japan. So the game was announced for winter 2014 release in Japan. That delay, initially that big first pushback, was to announce that, hey, this is going to be a PlayStation 4 and a PlayStation 3 game. This was announced at TGS 2014, and honest to God, just made the most sense. PS4 was absolutely killing it sales-wise, so why limit it just to PlayStation 3, which was the smart idea in the long run. Next delay in 2015, was actually more of just a, hey, we gotta work on this game more. Like, the game kept growing and growing and growing in scope, and if you look at any of the things about the original versions they've shown off, or even just files left over in the game for Persona 5, there were so many concepts and ideas that they never got to properly execute or kind of expand upon. And there are so many aspects of the game that not in like they were lazy or just couldn't do it anyway, or were just unfinished. Obviously, when you're making a 100-hour-long RPG like this, it's very hard to not have anything really left on the cutting room floor. Okay. So, after that initial delay of pushing it from 2015 to 2016, thankfully, actually, Atlas was smart and kind of knew, after so many delays publicly, they weren't going to talk about the game again until there was a public release date. And that's then when we found out that the game was coming out on September 2016 in Japan. Now, this is where we kind of get into an awkward place with America. So in America, for the longest time, Atlas West would not comment. I don't know if you guys remember this, but for the longest time, even the E3 of 2016, Atlas West was like, I don't know, when do you think the game's coming out? And that was literally just because they had a lot of work done, but this was such a large-scale project for them that they were just pretty much constantly up against the clock on top of doing every other project Atlas West was doing at the time. Because remember, it's not like Atlas West is like they are now. Like, Atlas West is just, is it a Sega game or is it an Atlas game? It doesn't matter, we're doing it. And even now, they have a lot of games going on, but it's nothing like they used to in terms of back in their publishing days. So a very, very last-minute 2016 delay, we found out that Persona 5 was releasing on Valentine's Day of 2017. And then at the tail end of 2016, if I'm getting my timeline correct, Atlus announced that they were pushing the game back 2 months. So this is one of those interesting delays of the game got pushed from a February 2017 release date to April. And this is one of those weird delays of, if you ask someone at Atlus, like, off the record, they're going to tell you, like, yeah, the game was done. And one of the easiest ways for you to know that is that people like me and people in the press who were reviewing that game, there were full retail code out there, like, before February's initial release date. And they'd already had the goods manufactured. It was really weird because, like, if you asked anyone on the record, or, like, I know I've, like, talked to a couple voice actors who thought this was the reason why beforehand, but it was definitely not true, was they were trying to make it seem like, oh, we were doing they were trying to fix the localization before it was too fast, or they were trying to fix some, like, voiceover bugs, but, like, they never did any last-minute pickups. There's no day one patch or even any patch at all for Persona 5. It was probably just this weird thing of maybe the steelbooks. There was a delay in production with the steelbooks or something in the collector's edition, but they just didn't want to, like, talk about the physical version while it was holding it up. So that was one of those weird delays of, like, they were being oddly sneaky about it, like saying, oh, this is for the betterment of the game, but if, like, you were in the game's media, like, I was playing Persona 5 when they said it couldn't be out yet. So it was just clearly wrong, but, like, not enough people are really out there in the industry to kind of call them out on it. Yeah, so Persona 5's delays were really weird. Like, I think in terms of Japan, it got delayed every time for the right reasons. Of, like, initially, let's make it be on more platforms so this game doesn't just kind of come out on a dead system and we look like clowns. We need to push it back a little more because the game's vision is getting a lot more grander in scope. And then finally it was like, okay, hey, the game's out. Also, important to note with Persona 5, Persona 5 was literally announced as part of, hey, Sega just bought us, and we were running our previous company owner into bankruptcy, so, hey, we need to announce a whole bunch of stuff. That's why you had announced Ultimax, Persona Q, Persona 5, and Dancing All Night. So all four of those games got announced on the same day, literally as a show of, hey, don't worry, we're still profitable, we'll make a lot of Persona, because Persona means money for us. Yeah, so that's about it for Persona 5, just because, at least in terms of the history of the delays, I would like to ask you guys in chat, just sort of curious, hey, how's it going, Spooky? One of my biggest gripes, and I think he's done videos about this, but I might be wrong, but Gnarly, one of my biggest things that always kind of, I've never understood is, he's one of the people out there, and I know there are many other people like him out there, who think the longer a game is delayed, the better that means it has to be. And so any of its faults or any of its blemishes look worse because, oh, gross, like, you worked on this game for 5 years. Why is there all these problems? Or, like, why is this bad? Like, you worked on the game this long. And I don't know if it's just because I'm so, like, I know what kind of goes into making all of these games, is maybe that's why I don't have that, but it's just really odd, because for me, like, I've never understood why people look at delays as, oh, cool, this means it's going to be better. And maybe that kind of goes back to the Miyamoto quote that I really don't like. I'm just like, I don't like that saying a game is delayed means it's instantly better. Because, like, I don't know. It's just one of those things of, like, I would enjoy it more if it was like, oh, don't worry, the game's delayed, but here's why. Just because I hate it when people sort of just look at delays as this has to be good or this has to be bad. And another case of the game getting delayed but was in silence for so long that it definitely didn't do itself any favors was Tokyo Mirage Sessions. Obviously, the entire SMT and Fire Emblem fan base is always going to have a chip on its shoulder because the game was announced as one thing and then went into silence for so long and then came out as something totally different. So I totally get if you're upset about that, but, like, I've never understood the people who, like, still hold on to that. Is like, if you still look at Tokyo Mirage Sessions as, oh, well, this is not SMT cross Fire Emblem, so that's why it's bad. That's the thing that always kind of annoyed me of like TMS actually had a pretty good development timeline in terms of once they knew what the game was. That's just another situation of, unfortunately, that game was just announced way too early, and by the time it finally came into a real game, like once it was actually a video game, like if they had just announced Tokyo Mirage Sessions at that E3 and shown what it really was instead of at that Nintendo Direct way back when, of here's the idea of what it is, because like if you look at that trailer, that's not a trailer. They're just throwing a bunch of PNGs onto the screen and saying, what if these two were a game? So it's just kind of weird. Other things I want to talk about in terms of delays. So let's talk about SMT5. SMT5 is an interesting one for delays in the sense of that game has never had a release date until 2020. And it's so funny how so many people were like, oh my god, is SMT5 dead? Did SMT5 like get canceled? Is it pushed off? Is it because it's a Switch game? It all goes back to the original thing of SMT5 had to get announced to make the Nintendo Switch look better. And I don't know why Atlas continues to find themselves in this situation more than any other video game company. It's just so interesting that if you look at it, like SMT5 had to get announced because the Switch had no big exclusive JRPGs. So there you go. This is a technical showpiece for the system because it is running on Unreal Engine 4, which, let's go back in time to when we thought Unreal Engine 4 was a masterpiece. Jacket says, depends. Delays are just 50-50. Some games can be good if they are delayed. Some are just meh, like Duke Nukem Forever. How is it 15 years? That's a really great point. Yeah, Duke Nukem Forever is like should go up next to that picture of Miyamoto with the delay quote. Gideon West says, I feel like Tokyo Mirage Sessions is like Fire Emblem fans more than SMT fans, even Persona fans. Gideon, that's interesting you feel that way, because I am not a Fire Emblem fan. Like, my only ones I've ever played are Fire Emblem Warriors. And when I play TMS, it is such a love letter to just the idol industry more than anything, in a wrapper that feels like Shin Megami Tensei to me. So, like, I don't know, like, because, like, if you took out all of the Fire Emblem characters, that game is still the same at its end core. Like, Chrom being Chrom isn't really changing anything in that story. Outside of maybe, like, a attack or how he looks. Like, it doesn't define any of the characters that relate to anything, let alone the gameplay. Very minorly kind of with the triangle system. Mark says, I remember SMT5 being announced on the in the 3DS. Actually, you're probably getting that confused because around the same time as the announcement of SMT5 was Deep Strange Journey, which was really confusing because they themed the 25th anniversary with a upcoming announcement for a Switch game and then a upcoming release for a 3DS remake. It was like a really weird situation of like, like, if you look back at how they've celebrated anniversaries, it's just kind of an interesting thing of like, oh, this is what you wanted to do? Like, you just announce one game, and then you make a pretty middling to fair remake of a DS game. Okay. Ooh. Immortal Slasher brings up an interesting point. How about Kingdom Hearts 3? So, Kingdom Hearts 3... I'm a huge apologist for it. I love Kingdom Hearts 3. I love everything about that entire game. I thought that experience was great. Kingdom Hearts 3's delays were interesting. Like, Kingdom Hearts was another one of those games that it didn't really have a release date until the final hour. And yes, it was announced forever ago, but that was another one of those things that you kind of have to realize that game getting announced was kind of like a Death Stranding. Like, yeah, this is gonna feel like it's forever in terms of hype because of how early on it was announced, but the fans just needed to know it was a thing. Like, it's such a boon in knowing that Kingdom Hearts 3 was in development, like, for so many years. And other things that don't often get talked about as much, Kingdom Hearts 3 initially was going to be developed on the Final Fantasy 15 engine, and then thankfully they were like, okay, actually, let's do Unreal, because Unreal is way easier and better to optimize for stuff, so let's just do that, because they were looking at what was happening on the Final Fantasy 15 side of things. So, I think in the long run, it's funny, not as many people talk about this, but I think if you actually looked at it, Kingdom Hearts 3 was actually probably in development longer than Final Fantasy 15. Now, Final Fantasy 15 is the really odd case because Final Fantasy 15 was originally announced as Versus 13, but if you look at all of those games every time it's been shown, they're all like basically different games. Like the original trailer for Versus 13 versus even just the original trailer for Final Fantasy 15, it is like, okay, you took the cast of this game and you took the world of this game, but like so many different things have changed about it, and they narrowed it down in scope way, way, way more than fans probably expected by the time the final product came out. But like, I'm such a Final Fantasy 15 apologist. Like, I looked at that game very unbiasedly, even after all the years of anticipation, and just taking it on face value, I think that Tabata just did such a great job by saving that game. And if you just look at, like, the world of 15, I think it has a lot of smudges on it, even after all the delays, or even after its release, but there's a reason it has such a huge fan base. Mark says, Tokyo Mirage Session seems like an anime named Macross. You're not super wrong. He also says, I didn't really feel like Kingdom Hearts 3 being delayed was due to how many Kingdom Hearts games there were. Yeah, and Kingdom Hearts was in a really easy place of, after Kingdom Hearts after Kingdom Hearts 3 was announced, you then had Kingdom Hearts 1.5 collection, 2.5 collection, 2.8 collection, 1.5 and 2.5 then coming to next gen, and then 3 finally coming out. So it was like they had a lot of HD collections to kind of bide time over for them. Whereas, like, look at something like Atlas, and it's like, it has been 3 years since SMT 5 was announced, and we're just now in Japan getting Nocturne remastered. Excuse me about that. Anime for the Win says, what's in BTWN Breath of the Wild, maybe? Hyrule Warriors 2 and SMT 3 HD. Posy Slave to come out, and oh man, I'm so sorry, I have no idea what BTWN means. I will say, actually, weird little tangent. Apparently, there's a rumor that Breath of the Wild, Age of Calamity is supposed to be getting a demo anytime soon, and I really, really hope that's true. If people can get their hands on that demo, and it's in English for everyone to try, I think it's just going to be like, oh, hey, check out how awesome and super, like, because look how awesome and super much like Scrabble this game is. BTWN means between. Okay, let's reread this again. What's in between Hyrule Warriors 2 and SMT 3 HD? Okay, that's a good point. So, from November to spring 2021, assumingly, if nothing gets delayed, obviously, while talking about this episode, let's just pull up the wiki, because I have the list saved on my phone. Alright. Because I always like to have all the releases kind of saved up just so I can kind of look at everything. Just because, especially releases, man, they jump all over the place all the time. Alright, so let's pull up 2021. Now, this is going to seem like a joke answer, but for 2020, this is very true. Puyo Puyo Tetris 2. Do not sleep on Puyo Puyo Tetris 2. Now, I'm going to assume people here are interested in next gen by things I will be including after Hyrule Warriors. So, after Hyrule Warriors, there is Just Dance 2021. You called it. Let's see. Nothing really that crazy in December, unless you are planning on replaying Dragon Quest XI Definitive Edition on not Switch hardware. Fire Emblem Shadows for people who just want to check stuff out on the cheap. Puyo Puyo Tetris 2. Brigadine, that kind of remake sequel, is coming to PS4 along with it's already been on Switch. Collection of Saga, again, if you want older stuff. And for 2021, I can only assume how sparse this must be. We have Hitman 3, the Prince of Persia remake, Atelier Ryza 2, I think is going to be a really big one people are going to talk about. Oh my god, yeah, I forgot. Disgaea 6 comes out super early in 2016. Ys 9, yeah, Ys 9 is going to be really big. Little Nightmares 2, Super Mario 3D World, Fallen Legion Revenant, Far Cry 6, just so many stuff. And then I'm going to end the list on Galgun Returns and Destruction All-Stars. One of those I will definitely play, the other one definitely not. Alright, I missed a comment from Jack that I actually wanted to try and get to. The only good delayed game I can remember was Team Fortress 2 and Half-Life 2. Half-Life 2 has a very long story about its delay we are not going to get into. TF2, you're definitely correct. Maybe Stalker as well, and it's a very nostalgic game for me, so biased with it. Jacket, I just want to say, I hope you popped off as loud as I did when Stalker 2 got announced. I think it was Stalker 2. I don't think it was Stalker 3. When Stalker 2 got announced, I was like, oh my god, what timeline am I living in? Like, I never thought I'd see the day where Stalker 2 actually got, like, another trailer again. I think it is Stalker 2. Yeah, Stalker 2, when that got announced at the Xbox showcase, I was like, this is, like, the most me thing ever, but I'm so in for it. The original Stalker was such a underrated, like, really, really fun game. Let's see. Yeah, Happy brings up a good point. It's very weird to think that Nocturne comes out in just a couple of days for Japan. I don't know if, like, it's just because it's remastered, because it's nothing about it is going to be in English, how importing it would do very little for me in terms of fun. I was talking about this with Gnarly a couple days ago, because he's going to be playing the Switch version, or at least he says he's planning on picking up the Switch version. And, like, I don't know. If you are a primarily English-speaking fan, what benefit do you have to importing that game? Like with Scramble, yeah, you can still play Scramble to its entirety, even if you don't know what story's going on. But yeah, for Nocturne Remastered, it would be like this. I'd play it for like an hour, and I'd be like, oh, cool, it looks either good or it looks about what I expected, and then you'd kind of put it down. And like, it's not a cheap game. It's like, by the time you end up picking it up, it's going to be about $50 to $60, even in US dollars. So, yeah, like, I don't know. I hope no one's going to pick it up thinking it's going to be more than it is if you are primarily an English speaker. I think all the people... I don't know. I don't know how every Atlas release warning us not to stream their new old games still continues to get the same pop-off online. It's like, guys, they've been doing this for every game. Like, there's never been a game Atlas has put out where they're like, you're good, just put it out, dog. Like, they did it for their own fighting games, for God's sakes. Ah, yes, Happy brings up a good point. 2 days to go and still no Switch footage. Yeah, man, I'm not saying it's like it's going to be trash, but it's like never a good sign when your game comes out in 2 days on a platform and you've never seen it. So I'm eagerly expecting to see those comparisons, but no, there's no need for me to have to throw some change down for that already. Oh man, great great thing for the Transformers game that was totally bad. Like got delayed and was still a total mess. 481 says, between Half-Life Alyx and Half-Life 2, people have married. Very true, but also Valve is such a different company. Like, I don't think it's fair to say Half-Life 3 has been delayed, because it's like, Half-Life 3 has been started and ended so many times, it's not really fair. Kind of similar to the 15 situation. Like, if you look at the development timeline of Half-Life Alyx, there's no way that game took more than like 3 years to make. Beyond SP says, I am just importing the special edition of Nocturne, I just have to, and I'm collecting the Red Game Gear Micro. Yeah, so like, for collectors, if you're wanting that game because like the collector's edition content and stuff like that, I 100% get you. I have no shame at all for you in terms of like, hey, why are you importing it? I totally get it, because guess what? When Nocturne Remastered comes out in the States, I'm serious. I will eat a piece of paper saying I'm wrong if that game gets a collector's edition. I mean, like a big boy collector's edition. I'm expecting a day one edition, and that's about it. But yeah, it's just like SMT has just not proven itself, especially in recent memories, for Atlas to really kind of trust it. Gideon West says, can we talk about how when Sega released PSO2 North America, it was originally supposed to come out in the same time? Yeah, there's a lot of interesting stories of that have come out over the years, but it just really sucks that, like, at the end of the day, everyone was right about why we never got PSO2. If it wasn't for Microsoft paying for the bill, Sega was just like, it doesn't make sense financially, and we're already so cheap of a company, and we're so poor. Like, 'cause, yeah, important to remember, guys, Sega does not have a lot of money. Sega is not a big baller shot caller. They are, like, barely able to consider themselves maybe, like, C to B tier developer and publisher. Like, their Yakuzas are huge, and then everything else that's not Yakuza or Persona has a really hard time getting attention. Just look at any of their other games released. Like, look at Sakura Wars, look at 13 Sentinels, look at Catherine Full Body on Switch. All these games no one will remember come, like, end of the year, unless you're really big into those franchises or as a fan. Alright. By the way, if you guys have any questions, because I seriously do not expect this to roll over longer than, like, for another 10 to 15 minutes, but we'll see whatever we end up kind of talking about. Mortal says, I've heard the argument that 2077 being delayed till December was guaranteed for more sales because there'll be less competition. Ooh, that's a good question. I've honestly not looked into it that much, but that would make a lot of sense. Because while 100% Cyberpunk has, like, the most hype of any video game probably this year, which is crazy to think considering it's a new IP. At the same time, you have to remember, they were originally going up against a new Spider-Man, Demon's Souls remake, like 2 new systems coming out. Technically 3 if you count the Series X and S as 2 separate. Just like all of next gen was just this huge bubble, and I don't think just saying, also, hey, we play good on the other systems. Hey, new dad in the chat. Not new dad. Well, I guess new dad in the chat. Krillcast, what's going on, man? Yeah, so I think by pushing it to December, it can only help them for sure. People are going to be, because, like, for me, oh yeah, like, think about Assassin's Creed, Watch Dogs, Call of Duty, new Kingdom Hearts games coming out, Yakuza, all of these games coming out in just November alone is overwhelming, to say the least. Devil May Cry, like, all of these things, and so, like, getting as far away from that as possible is only going to help your sales, especially considering there's no native edition of the system. Like, just by putting out there, hey, like, we run best on, well, not run best, but, like, they had a very specific vocabulary word for the commercials. If you look at them, it's like, plays great on Series X and S or PS5, because they can't say there's a PS5 version, because that game is probably going to come out later in 2021. Alright, so Jacket, because I had to get back to some Stalker love. I was so excited for Stalker 2, and I'm still waiting for it. Grigovich finally decided to do something. Like, it started development in 2010, and now we're finally getting it. Yeah, Stalker 2 is a really interesting development in terms of how it started, stopped, and a bunch of other stuff. Like, it had a lot of money troubles in terms of getting its footing, but I think Xbox has actually kind of helped it out, thankfully. Gideon West says, but since Sega had no one to work for the North American version, they took 8 years of the game to come out in North America. I'd be very curious to see how much longer it takes for Microsoft to let them put out, because Microsoft has said they are not restricting Sega from putting out PSO2 on all of its other platforms, because right now Microsoft is paying for it to be on PC, which is like Windows and Steam, and Xbox. But I still don't think Sega is brave enough to, like, hey, come on over, Nintendo Switch and PS4 version. Like, there's a part of me that just thinks, like, yeah, I could still see PSO just staying in the West a Xbox and PC exclusive, because Sega just doesn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. Happy says, tell us about the internal delays of Persona 5 Scramble. The delays are someone looking at a calendar after drinking an entire bottle of gin with a loaded revolver, trying to pick a release date and somehow missing every shot. Mark saying the most delayed thing of all time, the ending of One Piece and Pokemon. Pokemon, I could say, like, hey, listen, Ash is just some deity, whatever, give it or take it. With One Piece, though, I'll say this, like, One Piece, that is such a pickup and kind of enjoy it wherever it's at story. Like, I don't, at least for me personally, I've never met someone who's a One Piece fan be like, yo man, where the fuck's he finding that One Piece? I'm like, nah dude, you're here for the characters, you're here for the story. Like, no, like the fact that the Western version of the show used to always start with like, oh, we're looking for One Piece, we're gonna make it to the Grand Line. I'm like, dude, it doesn't matter. You could make a whole arc of One Piece about the Straw Hat Pirates going to a country, Golden Corral country buffet. Like, it doesn't matter. You're just here for the characters and the crazy situations they get in. Let's see. Crowcast is saying not much, just have a quick break while the newborn is sleeping. Oh my god, that must be nice. Thought I would check in and see how everyone's doing. Thanks for checking in on the stream, man, and hope everything's going good with the new child, so congrats on the daughter. Okay, people says, what is the chance that P5R is ported to PC and Xbox? I would say it's not even a chance. I would say it is a guaranteed thing that is going to happen eventually. You still have to wait for that exclusivity window to open up, and you're going to have to wait for Sega to kind of want the initiative to put it out. I think it's going to look really weird if they just go from Catherine Classic, Persona 4 Golden, and then to P5R. It'd be like, whoa, like you kind of skipped a couple there, buddy. I'd say realistically, if there's a next-gen port, which I highly doubt there would be, you could see it as soon as next year, but otherwise I'd say you won't see Royal on other systems until maybe the next 3 to 5 years, just because there's no real hurry and there's no real benefit to it. If you wanted to talk delays, I'm the one of the early investors in Squadron 42 Beyond SP. No, I have to ask now, how much money have you sunk into? Oh man, how am I forgetting the name of this? Star Citizen. I have to know. Yeah, geez, talking about delays. You cannot talk about delays without Star Citizen. If you are curious about Star Citizen, I highly, highly recommend. There's this channel. Well, it's technically a guy who's done it across 2 different channels, but he's under like Triple I Gaming for like indie game stuff, and he does a lot of Kickstarter and backer coverage. And he also used to work for this website called the Cliches. He does a fantastic coverage over the years and many, many delays that game has had. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's I'm really glad you mentioned Star Citizen. That is like, oh my god. Star Citizen is like the granddaddy of delays. Ash is Demi Fiend, but Pokemon. Very true. Those never die. Jacket says, what do you think the most days there will be without Persona 5 Scramble? 666? Oh my god. I told Happy last week on the podcast, like, if we get to 600, I'm gonna, like, freak out of, like, incompetence. But, like, 666, oh, man. It sucks because I could see it happening, but it's also, like, you gotta do it eventually. You just gotta do it. But I've also been saying that for, like, over half the year, so God only knows. Beyond says, I only invested about $150, I think. The one that was supposed to give me a physical copy and worth a star-shaped USB drive. Well, hopefully you will be playing Star Citizen, and we will all be playing P5S by the time both of those come out. Spooky says, I think it's just weird Atlas West being silent for 2 work days. I think a lot of Atlas West and Sega people are kind of on, like mid-vacation or prep, because they're going to have a lot of work over the next couple of days with Yakuza 7 coverage coming out. I've asked for a Yakuza 7 review code. I highly doubt I'll get one because God forbid they ever let me review anything that's not Persona or SMT related, or just like answer an email. So I would love to review that game. I think if I get if I got a code, I would 100% review it, of course. But by the time it comes out, it's going to be straight in the just glut of next gen, so it'll be a lot harder to kind of guarantee one. But I'll definitely be picking up Yakuza 7 at launch either way, because I got to get those 2 steelbooks. Oh my god, Girlcast. Any chance Yakuza on Switch? Knowing Sega, they would somehow find a way to port the Wii U HD collection that everyone hated, and that's what they would give to Switch. They wouldn't even give them the Kiwami ports. That'd be so funny. Like, yeah, think about that. Yakuza is on everything. It's on PS4, Xbox One, PC, and just isn't on Switch. It's so funny. I didn't even think about Yakuza has just not even touched it with a 100-foot pole. Let's see, though. I think that is about it, though, in terms of everything going on. If you guys have any last-minute questions for me, let me know. Otherwise, I might just kind of wrap us up here, and that was just kind of our delay talk. So, any last call for questions? This is your time to speak. You're gonna break embargo again like you did with Royal. They can't leave. That's true. I did technically break embargo for Royal, and it was for a good cause because they fucking released a game with some scummy DLC. They deserve to be called out on that, but that's all right. Hey, congrats on the media contact. Those are never easy or that fun to get. Wow. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, Star Wars Pod Racer got ported to, was it originally PC, then Switch, and then PS4. But yeah, I forgot about the Xbox version. That kind of makes sense. Yeah, those games are really, really fun. I have Racer's Revenge on PS2 through Limited Run, but yeah, it's just like, I remember playing that game. It's like, man, that brought back a lot of memories, but I definitely don't need to like own all of the classic Star Wars games. Like, I don't need any of the Jedi Outcast games and stuff like that. I have such a huge backlog already. 481 says, imagine Sega being the Rockstar and just don't port imagine Sega being Rockstar and just not porting every old game and milk the heck out of it for their new games for the last 10 years. Yeah, like, I wish Sega would teach Atlas how to milk like they do. Like, well, yes, Sega keeps selling you the same 10 to 20 Dreamcast games over and over and over. I would love that so much if they found a way to do that with Atlas, but I highly doubt, just because the way they work in Japan, they are such separate companies, it couldn't be more different the way it is in the West. Yeah, Happy, that'll be, like, I think my like, first tweet will be if the Hyrule Warriors 2 demo gets announced before Scramble. I'll be like, alright guys, Scramble 2's playable before Scramble 1. Mark says, do you think Persona 4 Arena should be released again, but for PC and Switch? I don't think it should be released on just those two. I've always thought it was weird that out of all the games Arc System Works went back to bring to PC or bring to other systems, they never really asked Atlas to try and do anything with the Ultimax. Don't know why I'm yawning so much. I've done absolutely nothing. I've been inside all day, so apologies. Yeah, I think even if you just ported a complete edition of Ultimax, all the DLC, and didn't even add anything new, just had online be whatever it was, put it on PS4, Xbox, Switch, and PC, I think that would legitimately be huge, because those games have such a hardcore audience. Like, think about it. If Phantom Breaker can make a comeback, then Persona 4 Arena Ultimax is no excuse. Killamo says, I'm getting my PS5 headset tomorrow. Killamo, I need you to tweet at me at either Torchwood4SP or on the Discord or at SMT Network on Twitter. Killamo, please let me know how those headsets are. I really, really, really want to get those new PS5 Pulse headsets, but I need to know how the quality is on them. So if you want to give me your impressions, or anyone out there listening, I'm very eagerly anticipating them. Okay, people says, I got into Yakuza when Zero went to Xbox Game Pass. Oh my god. Yeah, dude, so many of my friends I know, once, like, Yakuza came to Game Pass, it was such a, like, instant steal for them. Like, oh yeah, Game Pass, just try it. Give it a shot. Like, I know people were joking about, oh, if Persona came to Xbox, boo-hoo, boo-hoo. But, like, think about it. If Persona 5 Scramble was a Game Pass launch game, that would be, like, the biggest Persona launch ever. Guaranteed. It would be the biggest release ever. Game Pass on Xbox and PC would just, like, it would probably legitimately be one of those things where, like, oh hey, like 500,000 people just played it on this system. Like, that was it. Like, there you go. You just, like, destroyed all of its sales in Japan. Let's see. Mortal Slasher says, do you think that once the game is out and time has passed, will people actually remember the delays for 2077 or brush it aside? It's really tough, because you have to remember, we still don't know what the general people, like, outside of press previews, there's not really been a lot of, like, hands-on time with Cyberpunk. Like, so for me personally, I'm in the camp of, like, I'm not really delayed. Oh, 481 brings up a great point. Like, if a game is good, like Red Dead Redemption 2, nobody talks about those delays. Those delays hurt. Like, those were some year-long delays. But, like, think about something like Anthem. Anthem got delayed, and now everyone remembers it as being an absolute clusterfuck that nobody likes and nobody plays anymore. Let alone remembers that they're apparently supposed to fix it one day, but really, who's going to play it at this point? Alright, last couple of questions. Oh, Killamo, you're Fat Rin on Twitter? Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll definitely remember you, because Fat Rin is, like, one of my favorite. You're one of, like, my favorite accounts that I see liking my stuff, just because that profile picture and name. Mark says, do you know what'll be awesome DLC for Persona 5 Scramble? Putting famous Dynasty Warriors characters as personas. That would actually be really, really cool. Just, like, having Lu Bu be able to just to come out and just do, like, a sick melee combo on people would be absolutely insane. Alright, last question of the episode will be from the great G-Man, the guy. What'll be the next Megaton release? So I'm not going to be boring, and I'm not just going to say Nocturne Remastered. I'm going to think beyond that. I'm going to say that we will actually get a game after Nocturne, but before SMT5. There will be some form of SMT game, whether it be spin-off or re-release, after Nocturne, but before 5. If I'm hoping to God everything happens, it's a compilation of 1, 2, and If. But if I'm being realistic, it'll probably just be like Digital Devil Saga or Devil Summoner. No, they know Digital Devil Saga is more popular than Devil Summoner. So that would be my guess, but hard to say. And again, remember, it'd be a lot easier because those games actually already have voice acting, so they just got to put it through the HD machine, and then it's all done. Well, everybody, thank you for joining me on this very late, well, at least not late in terms of time, but in terms of preparedness. I had no real warning for any of you all about what was going to be happening for this episode, so thank you all so much for joining in the chat and talking with me about video game delays. So thank you, Great G-Man. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, 481, Killamo, Immortal, Krillcast, OK People, Happy, Spooky, Jacket, Beyond, and everyone else I am probably forgetting. Thank you so much for joining in the chat. Really, really enjoyed talking with you guys as always. And if you're listening to the either video version of this or audio version edited after the fact, thank you so much for listening as well. If you would like, you can support the show by finding us on iTunes, rating and reviewing us, just looking up Shin Megami Tensei Network. If you can give us a review there, even if you don't always listen to them there, always really, really appreciate it. Helps us kind of get our reach out there. You can find me on Twitter. I am at Torchwood4SP. You can also find the podcast on Twitter at SMT Network. You can also find... Oh, of course, thank you, Kugagal. I knew I was forgetting somebody. Thank you so much. You can also find the videos that I put up. I just put up a video showcasing off every White Schwartz Persona 4 English card on my YouTube channel. If you would like, you can check that out by going and searching up Spencer Presley or just checking the show notes below. You can find the Facebook group by going to facebook.com/groups/SMT Network. There's also a Discord, which you can find in the show notes below. And I don't think I'm forgetting anything else besides that, so I will just say I hope you guys all have a great Halloween. And if you are interested, I'm going to give a little bit of a tease. I don't have a Halloween special episode of the podcast planned, but I do have a special video that I am working on. And if anyone is able to guess it beforehand, I'll be very surprised. I'll give you 3 hints. It is a video about an Atlas published game. It is a horror game, and it is no longer playable on PlayStation 4. So if anyone can actually guess what this game is, bonus points to you for being a super cool Atlas nerd. Either way, guys, thank you so much for checking the episode live and just listening in general. Have a good rest of your week, and enjoy whatever is left of your Halloween weekend. See ya. Oh my god, you're right. Oh my god. Next episode's going to be out on election day. Oh my god. It'll just have to be about the election. You know that, right? I'll just have to talk about that. Oh my lord. Let's edit this out. And then let's end the stream here. Goodbye, everybody. I will see you later on election day. God only knows what's going to happen then. See ya. Hello, girl.